Alright, this is Henry again, and this is part 2 of my review of the Master Grade 00 Gundam 7 Sword G. And in this part we'll be going over all of the different weapons and accessories as well as the light-up features for this kit. Okay, I guess we might as well do the simplest weapons first, the beam sabers. They are located on the back skirts, and they're on a little hinge so they can swing out 90 degrees and then back down. And you just pull those out, put 00 over here, and you got two clear pink beam sabers. The connection for the beam saber is very, very tight, so just be careful that you don't just yank it out and accidentally break the peg for the blade. And then they've got a hole that actually goes all the way through the beam saber to connect to the peg in the hand. And naturally, the 00 has no problem whatsoever holding the beam saber at all. And that's in the poseable hand. And in the fixed pose hands, it holds it just as well. The thing about the weapons in the hands is that you actually hear a little click whenever you peg the weapons into the hands, so it seems Bandai's made an effort to make the pegs extra sturdy on this kit, seeing as how the weapons are so large. Moving on to the qan katars, you'll find them stored connected to the knee armor. And they just peg in with a little hole like that. Got a nice clear green blade, and the handle back here will just pull out, and it doesn't go up or down or anything, it just goes in and out. And as you can see, it's got a hole right there to accommodate the peg on the hand. Unfortunately, when trying to hold the qan katars, we run into a problem. I've already spoken to some people who have had this exact same problem on theirs, but the peg just does not want to stay in the handle for this thing. I mean, you can put it in and it'll stay in place a little bit, but with the slightest little touch, it'll come loose. So, since the pegs in the hands click into all the other weapons just fine, it's obviously the beam katar handles that are not very good at holding onto the hands. And it's not just the poseable hands, as pretty much the same exact problem on the fixed pose hands as well. Now luckily there's a silver lining to this problem, because that isn't the only way that we can use the qan katars. There's actually several ways. We can take these little mounting parts that I showed off, I think in part 1, and unfortunately they have a lot of hollow gaps on the back, similar to what you would see on an SD kit, which is kind of disappointing seeing as how this is a master grade. But they look good enough from the front, and you'll just slide the handle down and then connect it into the back like so. And then, if you do that with both of them, you can use them in a couple of different ways. The first way, you see this little gray piece right here. That's like a little peg. It's actually in storage on the back of this thing. Sort of hard to get out, but there we go. And you can peg this into the little hole right there. And you can use it on the back of 00's forearm like so. Similar to the shield parts that came with the 00 riser. And again, like the 00 riser, you can connect them together by putting these two pegs end to end like so, and you've got a shield very similar to what the 00 riser had. Also, if you want, you can disconnect these, and again, like on the 00 riser, you can connect these to the qan drives for an alternate storage mode if maybe for some reason you don't want to put them on the knee armor. Now, one last thing you can do with the qan katars is you get this little gray connector piece right here. It's basically just a handle, and you can take these off and connect them to each end of this weapon. Actually, theoretically, I don't see any reason why you couldn't just have one on there and it be sort of like a little sword type weapon, but in the manual it shows them both connected at each end, and you can fit that into the hand. Now luckily, this pegs into the hand much better than the qan-t themselves. You'll actually hear a click when you peg it in, and he has no problem holding it whatsoever. Moving up, we arrive at the qan-t long and short versions. And as you can see, for storage, they will be mounted to the side skirt. And as you can see, unpeg that, and there's just a little panel right there that's got two different holes, and you'll just remove that and then peg it into the upper hole to have it closed. So let's take a look at these swords, and as you can see, we've got a long version and a short version. The handle base area is pretty much the same. The blades are just different. I guess I'll go over the long one first. It's got a little mounting thing right here. You'll take that off when you're not having it in storage on the hips. And this blue part can swing back and forth. The handle can go down and split in two. Rotate that to the side, and this little handle swings out, and you've pretty much got the beam rifle mode with the tiny little barrel right there. Honestly, I've always preferred to use 00's swords as swords rather than beam rifles. I think they look a lot better that way. But just for the sake of showing it off, the 00 has no problem holding it in beam rifle mode at all. And with the excellent posability in the arms, he has no problem whatsoever holding it in a two-handed approach. Now the qan-t short version has a different gimmick. It pretty much functions the same way in sword mode. However, the end of it will come off like so, and Bandai gives us a flexible black wire that we can plug into each end, and it forms kind of a projectile sword tip weapon that I guess is supposed to anchor into enemies and retract back and all that kind of good stuff. And being smaller than the qan-t long version, he obviously has no problems holding this one either. And of course he can hold it just fine in beam rifle mode as well. Alright, so now we get to move on to the big weapons. Next up is the Soar-Blaster, which you will find mounted onto the right GN drive, or I guess you could mount it on the left one if you really wanted to. And just like the GN swords, it's got a very similar little gray mounting part. And that's pretty much due to the fact that the whole handle area is almost exactly the same as the qan-t version. So anyway, it's actually very, very nice looking. I love this nice clear green blade down here. It doesn't have a lot of moving parts, aside from the handle right here, and then the handle that comes out of the side. And you've got a nice strong connection with the peg in the hand, plus the Soar-Blaster has a connection to the back of the forearm, so it's an extra strong connection. And he really doesn't have all that much trouble holding it. Despite being as big as it is, the shoulder joint is just barely strong enough to hold it up, and the elbow joint as well doesn't have any trouble. The only thing you really got to watch out for is this joint coming loose. So as long as you keep that joint in place, you should be able to hold it up pretty well. And obviously you're not going to have any troubles with a two-handed approach, although you might want to be a little bit careful, because having this much weight that far forward tends to make them a little bit front heavy, so just watch out for that. And finally we get to move on to the biggest and in my opinion most impressive weapon, the GN Buster Sword 2. And as you can see, even when it's mounted on the GN drive, it's going to be touching the ground. So fortunately, that doesn't create any weight issues, unless you've got this guy on an action base, which I'll cover in a minute. So the, I guess, normal or traditional attachment is to the GN drive. You can also attach it to the back of the forearm for shield mode. And the way you're going to do that is by flipping out this little handle right here and flipping that peg in, pushing this end down here, and we're actually going to take this tiny little gray connector that was on the qan-t and plug it in right there. We'll have to rotate the wrist 90 degrees, And then we'll simply slide this handle into the hand and plug that to the back of the forearm. Oops, there we go. You'll hear a click when it gets in there, right? And then grab onto the white part of the shield and pull, and it opens up. And as you can see, the white part and these two blue side parts all kind of open and close simultaneously, so that's a nice little feature. And when you finally get the shield connected to the arm, you'll find that the shoulder and elbow joints don't really have any problems holding it up at all. Despite the sword's large size, it's actually able to hold it up pretty nicely. However, you will notice a weight issue in another place, in the torso. This waist joint and the kind of mid-torso joint are really not going to be able to support the weight of the Buster Sword. So pretty much whichever side you have it on, he's going to lean towards that side. So we've gone over storage mode and shield mode. Now we can move on to sword mode. We'll flip this handle back down, push all that back together, and you'll grab onto the handle and pull it out, and these two little white thingies will swing out automatically. And let's put this in the hand and see how it's going to work out. It'll peg into the hand just fine, and the wrist seems to have a little bit of trouble, actually a lot of trouble holding it. The wrist is pretty much gone limp. The shoulder joint will hold it, but it's gonna sink down like so. And yes, I pushed the shoulder all the way in so it's firmly connected the way it ought to be, and still it's just not gonna support it like it should. The elbow joint, I find, is perfectly fine. The elbow joint can handle it. The peg connection in the hand can handle it, but the shoulder joint and the wrist just aren't going to be able to handle the sword without some kind of support. But if you really want to get this guy and have him in some cool poses, I would suggest investing in an action-based 2. And speaking of action-based connectors, this kit does come with one, and easily enough just clips on between the legs, and it has absolutely no problem at all holding up the 00 Gundam by itself. However, once you start adding more and more weight to the kit, you'll find that it's not quite as secure as it should be. Pretty much, if you've got all the weapons attached to the 00 Gundam, you're going to want to leave him in an upright position on the action base, because once you start to lean forward, the action base connector becomes very unstable, and it's very easy for him to just pop off and fall to the ground. Also, while on an action base, while the qan drive locking mechanisms work very, very well in holding up the large weapons, you'll notice that 00 does lean towards the side in his torso there because of all the weight from this giant Buster Sword. So pretty much the only things left to go over for this kit are the light up gimmicks. And this kit will be able to use 4 different LED units all at once. Unfortunately, like I mentioned in part 1, they are sold separately, so you will have to buy those on your own if you want this guy to light up. Now, he's got, like I said, he's got 4 of them. There's one in each qan drive. There's one in the torso that lights up the eyes, and then there's one inside the qan Buster Sword too. For the lights in the qan drives, pretty much all you gotta do is just give them a little twist, and let's see, it's hard to tell with these lights turned on, but there we go. And you'll notice, yeah, they do flicker a little bit. They're not perfect. The contacts don't always make the best contact like they should, but if you fiddle around with it, you'll eventually get it to stay on and look pretty nice. For the LED unit inside the torso, we're going to have to take the backpack off, and you'll see a small little round door right here. You'll rotate that, and you'll hear it kind of unlock, and then you'll just pull that open, although you might want to get some sort of little tool to help you. And inside there you'll see the LED unit slides out easily enough. You'll just turn that on with the little switch. As you can see, it does kind of flicker. And we'll put that inside there. And when we turn the lights off, as you can see, it illuminates the GN condensers on the side of the head, the eyes, and the camera on the back of the head. And once you put in the little decals on the side of there, the clear stickers, and on the eyes, I think it'll actually look pretty nice. There's a little bit of light coming through the gem on the forehead, and even though that part is clear red, the light coming through still looks green, so Bandai actually gives us a reflective sticker to go up under that, so I think that may be something I'll end up using. And finally, for the Buster Sword, you've got a panel right here, which you'll slide down and pull that out. Inside is the LED unit. You just flip the switch, replace that panel, get it in straight, there we go. And then once you open it up, you've got 5 individual lights which are illuminated thanks to a nice little light piping feature. And turn the lights off, you can see them even better. The only real drawback to this is that here in the center, the LED is so bright that it's actually shining through that blue plastic, so hopefully a nice coat of paint will help fix that. And if you can manage to get all 4 LED units to light up at the same time without flickering, I think you'll have a very nice light up gimmick for your Master Grade 00 Gundam. And last but not least, here are a couple of comparisons. Here's the Master Grade 007 sword compared to its high grade counterpart. As you can see, they use 2 different shades of clear green, but all the other colors are pretty much the same. And the proportions are pretty much the same as well. The only difference with the Master Grade is that you're going to get a lot more detail, plus the light up gimmicks. And here is a comparison to the Master Grade Exia. So that about does it for my review of the Master Grade 00 Gundam 7 Sword G. I think this is a really, really good kit. The inner frame is really impressive in my opinion. Frankly, I was more impressed with this Master Grade version of the 00 Gundam than I was with the Perfect Grade version. And that's not to say that the Perfect Grade isn't a good kit, it's just that it wasn't all that great compared to the other Perfect Grades, whereas this guy is very, very nice compared to other Master Grades. I like the LED gimmicks, even though they're sold separately. This kit doesn't include any LEDs. I do like the gimmicks that are on the kit. I think the locking mechanisms for the GN drives are very, very nice. They work really, really well and have no problem holding up the weight of the larger weapons that you can mount on the GN drives. The detail all over the kit is really fantastic. I mean, if you go in and panel line all of the inner frame and all the details and everything, you're going to be panel lining for a long time. And if you like painting that kind of stuff, you're going to be painting for a long time. So lots of nice detail on this kit. However, this kit isn't perfect. It does have a few problems. Mainly just weight issues, and really that's to be expected from having giant weapons like the GN Soar-Blaster and the GN Buster Sword 2. I mean, pretty much anybody could have told you this kit was going to have weight issues before they'd even opened the box. So, honestly, I think it would have been smart for Bandai to include a, sparkle green action base too, like they did with Master Grade Astray. But, obviously they didn't. They probably just wanted to boost sales of the action bases individually. But that's besides the point. It does have weight issues, mainly just in the shoulder joint and in the torso right there. Like I said, the GN drives themselves have no problem holding up the weight because of the locking mechanisms, but the shoulders, where the arms holding the weight, it's just not going to happen. And the torso is always going to lean to this side, whichever side you've got the GN Buster Sword on. While the connections for the hands and the pegs and the weapons is actually pretty good, and the shoulder joints and elbows and wrists can hold up most of the weapons, obviously the Buster Sword here has got weight issues associated with it. So, like I said earlier, you're probably going to want to use some sort of support like an action base or something to be able to pose him with that big old thing. Another disappointment is the hollow parts on the back of these things for the GN guitars. I mean, come on, Bandai, that's the kind of stuff you expect to see on an SD kit. The hands are surprisingly good at holding the weapons. Bandai's got almost like reinforced pegs on here. This is the first kit I've built where I actually hear a click whenever I peg a weapon into the hand, and I think that's gone a long way in actually helping to have the weapons being supported in the hands. Although, one thing I do want to talk about is the fixed pose hands. I don't really see a point in them, because common sense says to me that fixed pose hands would be better at holding weapons than posable hands. However, I found that the posable hands and the fixed pose hands both held the weapons equally as well. Neither one was really better or worse than the other. So, aside from the closed fist looking really good, the fixed pose hands are kind of pointless. Although I do really like these wrist joints. I wish they would use these wrist joints on more master grades. So overall, I think this is a really good kit. You get a lot of stuff, lots of playability, lots of display possibility. I'm stumbling over my words here. And great articulation as usual. Pretty much every 00 model kit has got great articulation. So anybody that likes Gundam 00 or likes the 7 sword version or just likes a really well-made model kit with good posability, this is going to be the kit for you. So that about does it for this review, and with that, I'll see you guys next time.